All right, now we're up to chapter 12 in the reissue of my autobiography. All's fair in love and war on the internet. Lol. And then I put two little emojis there, a fuck you emoji and a crazy guy emoji, because there's going to be a lot of that going back and forth here. There's also a sexual intention too. This is like a pubic triangle and a clitoris, but then this is also phallic, and this is vaginal, and so forth. Just sets the tone for the craziness that's on the way here. All right. The rules of fair play do not apply in love and war. John Lyly, 1578. That's where it comes from. A Shakespearean writer guy. All right, number 1. Subsection 1, the first internet battle. John, please don't kill yourself, Mary was saying to me over the phone while I was in the Florida psych ward. Please, please don't. Okay, baby, I said. I won't. I promise. I was in that psych ward for 4 days, during which time they took me off Klonopin. They didn't wean me off it. They just stopped giving it to me cold turkey. But you can't do that with benzo addiction. You have to come off it slowly and gradually. When they let me out, I checked into a motel room for my last night in Florida on New Year's Eve. Just as the Klonopin withdrawal symptoms were hitting me hard, I couldn't sleep for the entire night. My back ached, and I had a headache that would not go away. I texted Mary asking her to come to my motel room and give me a New Year's Eve kiss, but she refused. So I flew back to Phoenix across 3 flights with an aching back, no sleep, and no benzos for my claustrophobia on board planes. I just had to suffer through it. It was miserable. One of the worst days of my life. I returned to my mother's garage once again, feeling like a complete failure. I was devastated. My mother hadn't wanted to take me back in. I can't keep cleaning up your messes for you, John, she said. But I told her I had nowhere else to go for the time being. Meanwhile, I had to get more Klonopin from my psychiatrist at the Indian Hospital in Phoenix to wean myself off it. I'm part Native American, recall, so I get my health insurance from the feds. As I gradually reduced the doses, the withdrawal symptoms went away. But my depression would not lift, and it was very severe. Needless to say, I resumed drinking to try and alleviate it. I tried talking with Mary over email, but the relationship was over as far as she was concerned. We talked a bit, back and forth, texting and emailing, but it was mostly the blame game. She would have treated me like a king, she said, but I just trampled all over her. I then reminded her that she had played a part in the disaster, too. All the men surrounding her, and the fact that her mother had warned her that our relationship would fall apart if she didn't quit webcamming. How could you realistically expect to hold down a relationship while doing that sort of job, I texted her. There might be some men who could put up with it, but most wouldn't even have tried. She was lucky I had even tried. Everything, however, was apparently all my fault. She had done nothing wrong. She was an innocent angel, and I was the bad guy. She had already cast herself into the role of a victim by refusing to take any responsibility for her shitty behavior. Then she told me that she was planning to move in with her friend when her lease expired in April. So I said to her, 2 20-year-old girls living alone. I wonder what sort of sexual debaucheries will go on in that apartment. Threesomes, foursomes, and then she texted, I like how you just make assumptions about me. And I said, assumptions? Mary, you're a total sleazebag. The word sleazebag lit the powder keg. She remembered my Facebook password and then immediately got into my feed pretending she was me and leaving insane comments everywhere. She had me supporting Trump and saying silly, narcissistic things. It was very embarrassing, and it was a huge mistake on her part. She was the first to take our relationship into the public arena of my avatar, and now that set me off. We traded insults publicly. I had by that point already tracked down the link to her webcam page on the site called StreamMate, and so I posted it on my feed letting everybody know that her webcam avatar fixation was really her, and that if they wanted a session with her, they were welcome to it. She was outraged. She was deeply ashamed of what she did for a living, and she didn't want anybody to know about it, but now everybody knew who and what she was. She then proceeded to blackmail me. She was running out of money, and she told me that unless I paid her internet bill for her, she was going to message all my friends with sexually compromising information that we had exchanged while trading fantasies and scenarios across Facebook. At 8:29 p.m. on February 10th, 2017, she sent me an email that read, send me $300, actually I really do need it. Internet getting shut off in 48 hours if I don't pay. Getting on cam here soon. I'm sure there will be fans of yours coming to see me. Do I want to send them screenshots of some of our messages? I very well could. Then at 8:33 p.m., she wrote, Send me the money by midnight or I send the screenshot to people at 8:40. The message goes out to all your friends at 12 a.m. if you don't do it. 8:43. You think I won't do it? Well, you don't know me very well, John, do you? 8:48. Go ahead, John. What are you fucking waiting for? I told her that I didn't have any money, otherwise I would. But I also pointed out that sexual blackmail is illegal. For the rest of that night, however, a barrage of emails from her followed, each more vicious and insane than the last. At 8:54. If you don't respond, I might even do it before 12 EST. Let's say, what about 11:30 instead? You have 30 minutes. 8:57. Have the message ready. All I have to do is press send on multiple people's accounts. 8:59. Oops. I might have just accidentally sent it to one person. Let's get a move on, John. When midnight Eastern Standard Time arrived, and I had refused to respond to any of her emails, she then private messaged a handful of my Facebook friends with some of our sexual conversations. Most of my friends were smart enough to ignore the messages, however, as it was obvious that she was mentally deranged. Then the very next day, I received a Gmail that read, "You mad?" I ignored it. But then later that night, at 1:02 a.m., I received another one. "I'm sorry, John, I went too far." That was the first time I had ever heard her apologize for anything. It softened me a bit. Then she asked me to forgive her, and I did. I told her to just forget about it and that I shouldn't have called her a sleazebag. That was my stupid mistake. Then she emailed, "Did I hear you right? You forgive me?" And I said, "Yes, of course I do. I love you. How could I not?" That episode was the first time I had ever seen any kind of real aggression from her. She was normally only passively aggressive, but here she had demonstrated to me that she could fight back with equal vigor and probably even surprised herself. It kind of turned me on in a weird way. I like women who fight back. My ex and I had managed to make it work for 15 years precisely because she always gave my shit right back to me. She had been a tough woman with a strong ego, though. Mary's ego was very fragile, and she had a split identity. She wasn't sure who she was, the sweet, young, and artistically talented girl named Mary Church, or the cynical, world-weary webcam prostitute Fixation. One night, shortly after we had first begun talking on Facebook and she had confessed to me that she was actually a webcam model and not an employee at CBS, she had then typed, "So much for my shyness, right? I really am shy, though, but being on cam brought out another persona. I was me, but not me." So she was fully aware of having two identities, just as I was both the real John David Ebert with bipolar mood swings and my online avatar, the scholar and thinker on the John David Ebert channel. So there were actually four of us, not two. And in fact, if Jung was correct, there were also two more of us, namely my anima and her animus. So there were 6 of us in total. No wonder it was such a mess. Welcome to hypermodernity. 2. The second internet battle. So I had rejected Fixation, her internet avatar. I wanted no part of her. But it was excruciating for Mary, that rejection, because her online avatar was tangled up with who she thought she really was. Now her avatar had been destabilized by my rejection, and it was in a decaying orbit, heading for Earth like a dead satellite. Consequently, she was running out of money. She was having trouble getting clients because she was losing enthusiasm for the job, and the men sensed that and were beginning to shy away. I had been there with her on many nights in Florida when her attitude would suddenly sour as she realized she wasn't getting customers, and she would start being hostile to the men, insulting them. I would then go out into the living room and tell her, "Baby, log off. You can't do this with a bad attitude. You'll just chase the men away." I realized that she must now be having many of those nights. "Mary's health is going downhill," her mother emailed me. "She has no appetite for anything but vodka." Now, before leaving Florida, I had asked her if she would make me a Fixation video. I wanted to see her act from the point of view of her webcam men. I wanted to see what they saw. And she had agreed vaguely but never got around to doing it. I asked her to make me the video that I had requested and that I would agree to pay her next month's rent for her if she would do so. I knew that she would never do it for any other motivation than money. So she agreed and then asked me what I wanted her to do in the video. I knew that she had been using very large dildos in her act. Although she had never used the huge ones when I was there, she had hid them under the bed, pretending they were too big for her. And I knew that she used them on a regular basis, and I wanted her to make me a video using the largest one, which was 9 inches long and 2 inches wide. I wanted to see that one. So she proceeded to make the video and sent it to me over the internet. I then paid her rent for her and was thrilled to finally see her act as her men saw it. I wanted to see what they saw. I wanted to get what they got. I thought it was only fair. Needless to say, I masturbated to that video every single day for weeks. It was the only sexual contact I had with her now. But I felt a little stung by the fact that I had to pay my own girlfriend to make masturbation videos for me. She should have done it for free. Now I was in the uncomfortable position of being one of her Johns. We got into a huge fight over it. We're in the awkward situation here, Mary, I told her over the phone, that you're spreading your legs every night for strange men, but you won't spread them for your own boyfriend unless I pay you. What sort of fucked up relationship is this? Fine, break up with me then, she said, and hung up. Her attitude made me unbelievably angry. She wasn't being fair with me at all, so why should I be fair with her? I then posted her video on an online porn site. She was mortified. Take it down, John, she said. Revenge porn is illegal. So is sexual blackmail, Mary, so I think we're even now. We both have stuff on each other that could get us in very big trouble. I took the video down a few days later. We broke up again in March. This time I thought it was for good, but I was wrong, yet again. 3 equals of opposites. Meanwhile, I busied myself with some new writing projects. Mary had been very enthusiastic and encouraging of my poetry, and I had spent the time the previous year while courting her writing a great deal of poetry inspired by her. I had been writing poetry all my life, but never told anyone about it. I wasn't sure I was any good, and there's nothing worse than reading someone else's bad poetry that they think is spectacular just because they wrote it, like, for instance, the poetry of my mentor, William Irwin Thompson. Learning to write good poetry is as difficult as learning to play a musical instrument. Mary was the first person I ever allowed to read my poems, and her enthusiasm for them was infectious. She was, and still is, my muse. I don't know where I got the idea, but I sat down to write an epic poem about the history of the planet. I worked my way through books about fossils and paleontology, geological epoch after epoch, writing a poem inspired by the flora and fauna of each particular epoch. Mary absolutely loved the book, as did a few of my friends whose literary taste I respected. I called it Archai, a cosmogonic poem. I designed a black and white cover with a line drawing of small organisms by Ernst Haeckel. I put the book out on Amazon in early April of 2017, but then I received a rude email from someone who was a cohort of the astrologer Richard Tarnas. He told me that he was the editor of a Jungian journal called Archai, and that the most recent issue also featured a black and white cover, and that I should immediately redo my cover and change the title. I told him to go fuck himself. Amazon then immediately took the book down without even consulting me. I wasn't going to be bullied by the Tarnas circle, however, no way. I had had no knowledge of the existence of their journal, and I resented this offhand treatment. So I went onto my Facebook feed and described what had happened. The cohort of Tarnas, as well as Tarnas himself, then received a landslide of emails from my fans insisting on having my book restored on Amazon as is. I then received a phone call from Tarnas, who told me that he thought there was enough room in the cosmos for both a book and a journal called Archai, and that he would be happy to have his cohort tell Amazon to put the book back up as long as I issued Tarnas a public apology. I agreed only because I wanted the book restored, though I thought that Tarnas's response was a bit narcissistic. After all, they were in the wrong, not me. I later in 2025 published a revised and expanded hardcover edition with full-color high-res AI images that are absolutely spectacular. The book truly is an epic. I then proceeded to have another creative explosion as I was grieving over the loss of Mary yet again. I dug out my old Gilgamesh manuscript from 2006 and completely melted it down and then rebuilt it. This time, 11 years after beginning it, I got it right and put that out on Amazon a few weeks later as Gilgamesh Redux, which I then republished in 2025 as part of my collected works library. Now it exists in hardcover and is thoroughly illustrated with amazing full-color AI images. 2 epics in a row. Then a friend of mine, the great Los Angeles poet and cultural critic Michael Aaron Kamens, who was very enthusiastic about both books, suggested that I write a book of poetry about Mary and I in the archetypal mode of the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. She had, after all, disappeared into the underworld, an electronic one in this case, as the conditions of hypermodernity now dictate. She had disappeared into what the contemporary German philosopher Peter Sloterdijk has termed the world interior of capital. So I wrote that book with her in mind, Orpheus in the World Interior. And the funny thing here is, just as in the myth, when Orpheus can only redeem Eurydice from the underworld by the beauty of his song, so too this book, this song, actually brought Mary back to me. I did a reading of it on YouTube, which she saw, and she absolutely loved it. This is the edition of it that I republished in 2025 as part of my collected works. It's in hardcover and illustrated with full-color high-res images of Mary Church's incredible artwork. We started talking again. She said, "You're winning me back, John, with your words, as always. I love your words. It was the thing that attracted me to you in the first place." I then told her that I was going to write a book of poems specifically about her. It was to be called Gravity Girl, and in it I would plug her into the Gnostic myth of the soul that falls from heaven and gets captured into the prison of a physical body that it doesn't want to be in, and then has to undergo a shamanic death and resurrection ritual in order to return to the heavens, which is where she really wants to be. And this poem, too, sadly enough, proved to be prophetic of her fate. As I read each new poem to her over the phone every night for the next few weeks, she cried at their beauty. She would break down, sobbing. Here are a few examples from our Gmails. From April 22nd, 2017, 5:18 p.m. to Mary. I added a couple more poems today, one called Orgasms, too. Let me know if you like it. I'll write some more tonight. On mailing you the book, if I just address it to your name and send it to your complex, will they know to get the book to you? How should I address it? And here we're talking about Orpheus, not Gravity Girl, which I'm in the process of writing at this point. Oh, one other thing. I think you should do the cover art for the new one, which I'm thinking of calling Anatomy of a Girl. Do you like that title? Fortunately, I didn't use that. Gravity Girl's much better. As you read the poems, hon, think about an image you would like to do for the cover. I can get this book done and published very fast, within about a month, maybe sooner, since I can do everything myself. And I'll put your image on there, babe. You'll finally get that cover you deserve, and I think it would be appropriate for the collection. But it has to be really good. And then here's the poem that I sent her that day called Orgasms. It wasn't the first one, it was like the fifth. The ancient sun-wrecked eye that sees a crawling, luminous profusion of glowing forms that cast strange night shadows all about it and rain down floods of light that surround and demolish it. You were disabled in the vectors that bound you, and the dark flood of cells that compose you with tides of streaming luminescence. Orgasms flooded through you and shook the vibrant interior of your body. As you came and unleashed white floods of nucleotides that washed you inside out and made your brain vibrate, the quest for pink cocks with dark purple heads drove you to wayward arcs of desperate motion as you thirsted for the white semen that glued your bones together, and you drank it from between the legs of men. Narrow apertures that gazed back at you and made the holes of your body resonate, where you plugged into the cosmic flows that filled you with ecstatic blue streams of light and made you shudder and convulse with spasms of delight. You were sick for it, but couldn't remember why, or where those urges came from that drove you to such acts, and bound you to the wheel of a delight that never filled you, and you always wanted more. The darkened lips of your bright pink gash pulsed and convulsed and hungered to be filled, as the tiny cave there shuddered with each member that entered inside it and squirted its white juices. That craving opened you up inside and hollowed you out where pink lines aligned with epidermic skin flesh that designed you by a god whose architecture you never knew and didn't want to. And in the end, the night dream delights of your orgasms were like the missing wings that you soared on and bore you up in the darkness on a flood tide of cellular lattices that rippled like sea corals, or some sunken submerged biomorph whose tendrils wove a fabric of fibrils. April 22nd, so this is the same day, 2017. She writes back about 20 minutes later, 5:42 p.m. Just read the new ones. Wow, John, I just soak up every word. Really takes me on a journey. People will love these. But John, you have to take the sexual stuff out. Please, it makes me uncomfortable thinking of people reading that, and some people might be grossed out, and you might lose some fans. Please don't put those parts in. Otherwise, they're so good, John. I'm amazed by you so much. And then 5:52 p.m., I write back to her. All right, let me think about it. The problem, though, is that for a book that is going to be all about you, there has to be at least a few sexual references because sex is such an important part of who you are, hon. I don't want it to be just a platonic thing of transcendence that ignores the sex. I'll take out the orgasms poem. I didn't. But I'll probably leave the other references in there. Believe me, babe, nobody will be grossed out, and you have nothing to be ashamed about. It's all really beautiful. Do you like the idea of doing the cover? Later that night at 10:52 p.m., she responded, I'm not ready to pick up my art materials yet. I just don't think I can come up with anything. You don't need me to do the cover, though. John, if I did something rushed, that would be even worse. All these poems are blowing me away, though. I will cherish them forever. Keep thinking of a title This first idea isn't bad, but just think on it. Maybe you'll come up with something better. Fortunately, I did. Earlier that night at 6:23 p.m., I sent her a poem called Dreams. So this is the same day, but she didn't respond to that other one until later at night after she was done webcamming. Dreams. Where did your dreams take you? Optical horizon of luminal depths that emerged where the edges of your skull kept and held them all in. Otherwise they would leak out and soak you in dream forms that lay writhing and squirming warm tiny animals all around you. But instead the forms that changed into rivers of pink gold, magmatic seams riven with fractures, where old dead things lay and stirred in the pale waters inside you, and the chromium leaves of a burnt autumn sky rained cinder cones of human ash flake all upon you, and the luminous quiet echoes of a distant burning sun that yawned across the lake of your childhood rippled and melted in the mirror blue waters that shattered their forms and rose up and broke apart phantoms in the sunshade green. Your dreams crawled and broke soft and white all around you, and intense translucent phantoms burned upon your retinas that you could always see whenever you looked against a sky the color of copper or an earth that looked to you like it was made of brown coffee. The sun always struck white arcs that you could remember back then, when you studied a cartography of cracks on the ceiling, as you lay on the bed in your room and dreamed of giants walking upside down above you. Protean landscapes made out of black and white magma carved themselves and molded shapes just for you, and whole planets broke ecstatically forth to submerge you in the chaotic wobbles of their orbits around dead stars. Winged visions came to you, and you heard them come in and whisper things to you that made you wander down hallways and dark rooms and broken unhinged corridors where old memories bled stale and quietly in the dark. Some of them came to find you. They sought you out, those dreams, and grew long branches that reached for you out of the gloom and crept over you where you lay and dreamed of dark things that wandered across unlit sunless seas where migrating pink forms that grazed moved with an indifferent solitude without you. And you wondered if it would ever include you in its reach, the closet with its pale dead shirts that hung like funeral shrouds and scared you in the dark at night when the lights were out and small pale things moved and rustled in the corners to terrify you. The world seemed old to you then, old and full of large monstrous things that stalked your dreams and filled your head with nothing that you could ever remember except the silence and the trees that rustled outside your window at night as you slept in the corner, curled up by yourself and lay waiting for death. Then I typed at 9:45 p.m. Did you like that new poem I added called Dreams? Her response. Yes, I did. John, you really have a way of reaching into me. I'm not so great, though, as you make me out in your poems. I'm just a lost person. No direction at all. Feel like I lost my way. And with you, I'm so apprehensive getting close to you. It has not done me much good in the past. You have to prove you care about me, John. If you want me in your life, you have to treat me right. Then me, at 9:48, responding, I am proving it, sweetie. If I didn't care about you, I sure as hell wouldn't be writing 2 books about you. And no, you are not a lost person, Mary. You are not. You're a wonderful person who just had the misfortune of falling in love with a bipolar genius. I know I've hurt you. I'm sorry for that, hon. I don't want to do it anymore because it never helps either one of us and only causes pain. Then at 9:56, she wrote, Ugh, you're so confusing to me, John. You acted like you hate me, and I swore to myself I wouldn't talk to you again. But then you go seducing me with poems. I almost think you love me, but you've given me so many reasons to think you don't. I don't understand my feelings. I need to work through them. Why can't we just be a normal couple in a normal relationship? What couple can't even live together? Then on April 23rd, I wrote, the next day, thinking about this for a title. Gravity Girl, a Diagram of Descent. Just received a copy of my first new book, Gilgamesh Redux, and it's awesome, Mary. I want to send you a copy. My friends really love it, and I think you would like it too, hun. I'm so excited about all these new books, hun, and especially about the new one about you. It's so awesome, hun. I love celebrating your loveliness and beauty and sweetness. Do you like that title? I think it's kind of cool. You're the Gravity Girl. It almost sounds like a superhero, doesn't it? I love all this creative energy that you're giving me, hun. It's all coming from you somehow. I don't understand how, but it is. You're my sweet, cute little muse, baby. So notice the chemistry here between the two of us. I'm always over the top and overstate everything with emotional effusiveness, whereas she's always understated and laconic and reluctant to respond and is always cautious and careful, almost like a cat that is creeping around very cautiously. And in reply, "Wow, John, absolutely stunning work. I love the poems with all my heart. I wish you were nice to me like this all the time." See, always, the glass for her was always half empty. Can't ever see the upside. Then on April 24th at 10:49 a.m., I sent her this. "Cool, baby, I added 2 more poems to frame the narrative. One at the beginning and one at the end, where you fall to earth, and then at the end, rise back to the stars. I think these poems are dark, lovely, and beautiful, Mary, just like you are. I think I really captured your essence in these poems, babe. What a woman you are." Her response came at 5:20 p.m. "Blown away by the poems, John. I showed a few to my mom. They brought her to tears, too. You have an incredible talent. I really am endlessly impressed with you. I love you too, John. Please, when you start to feel mean, you have to think about the poems and just remember your feelings for me when you were writing them. Beautiful work, John." And also that day, I sent her a poem called Final Song, which forms the climax of Gravity Girl. Final Song. The heavens welcome you now. You couldn't deny it. The architectures of space merged and sought with planetary vectors that shaped elliptical arcs in orbit and brought down surges of ancient force that resonated through the spaces between them and brought you into them from the earth where you started. You never would know where it began. Somewhere across the silences of those lakes, where you floated in boats and dreamed of black gold skies that always receded when you reached out to touch them with your tiny girl's hand. And you only ever wanted their embrace for them to come down and take you up where the clouds formed epic poems of shattered glowing giants and broken ships that burned off the shores of Ilium. You wanted to be part of that. You wanted to be the girl that they stole and that everyone scrambled for in the ships and the tents and the chariots that swarmed over the land. You wanted to be that girl. But instead you wound up with trash-heap junkyards and bone-dry alleyways and streets where sewers boiled and rats crawled, and you got fluorescent lights up above instead of gods, and you had to walk the dark, limitless nights looking for love that never could find you, and the epic poems that never reminded you. You wanted vast armies of men to swarm over ancient green fields that glittered beneath a hot gold sun, where reeds and stalks swept with the rush of new winds that bore shadows through them, and gold forms made of daylight. All for you. You wanted the world to bend, to mold its shapes and its contours like the black space all around you, where gods gathered together in council and made decisions about you. You wanted stars and fires and ships on fire that sought the edges of Orion in the night. You wanted angels to notice and green gods to emerge that grew worried about the absence of your presence. You wanted cities to rise and gold to flow and men to build bridges across spaces that lost all the ones next below. You wanted suns to be born in the black mother space that formed stars in the night up above you. And you couldn't believe that you only could have the relics of day that receded when the pink sun shaped the telephone poles with birds sitting on them in the lavender mornings against a mauve-colored sky where the newborn sun was shining on buildings. But none of that mattered to you. You only wanted dreams and clouds to come down and talk with you and stars at night to reach down to you and tell you the things that you wanted to hear, of gold and men and stolen women and dragons with spines so archaic that the hills couldn't remember them. But alas, Mary, now you have been caught by the poet who knows you and turned into the ache of the loss that surrounds you and set amongst the stars in the lines of a poem that has learned to love you. You aren't just a girl anymore. You've become a song larger than the hills and the pink granite mountains, where you've expanded so large that not even the sun could contain you. The light has come through for you, Mary, and this song has sung of you and your beauty and magnificence and lost broken-heartedness. This poet loves you, Mary. And her response came at 7:40 p.m. I loved the last song poem. Made me cry. Wow, you really have an incredible visual imagination. You have an ability to tap into something otherworldly, John. Your poems just get better and better. You're still putting out these things we no longer are, though, right? People need to see those, too. Oops, I meant final song. Some nights over the phone, though, it would be a rough go convincing her that I really did love her. It puzzled me to imagine what more proof she would need than all these poems. It's not exactly just every day that a girl gets literary poems of astonishing beauty written about her. We would get into long arguments, with her enumerating all the examples of behavior I'd exhibited, proving I didn't love her. You just love my pussy, she would say. Or else, You just love me because I'm a beautiful woman. And I know how much you love beautiful women, John, all those porn stars you watch. Yes, I would say, but do you think I would go to this much trouble over you if it was just all about your looks? I would have given up on that a long time ago. Been there, done that. I've already had your pussy. I want you, baby. I'm totally, completely fascinated with you. Why can't you understand that? Then her standard objection always began, well, if you loved me then, blah, blah, blah. She was like a broken record and would never, ever admit any wrongdoing on her part. I was always having to shoulder the blame. Everything was always my fault, never hers. If something was wrong in the relationship, then surely it must be because I had failed to do this or say that. But though she kept doubting my love, I was demonstrating to her through the poems, night after night, that I did indeed love her very deeply, despite how difficult the relationship was. She was realizing that I understood her emotional cartography better than anyone. Otherwise, there was no way I could have written about her in those poems as accurately as I did. How could you know all that about me, she asked. Because, baby, you're so beautiful inside as well as outside, and I can see the beauty inside of you just as well. It's like I have a sort of X-ray vision with you. I can actually see how beautiful your soul is. No one else ever could, and she knew that. She wasn't about to let go of the first man in her life that could see how beautiful she was on the inside. And then on April 26th, I typed, Baby, you've become my Alice in Wonderland. I've turned you into a character in a work of literature. And even more so now that years later with the Motorcycle Girl trilogy, I've created her as an actual literary character named Sarah Cynthia Smith. But it is her. She wasn't about to let go. Right. And then on April 26th, Baby, you've become my Alice in Wonderland. I've turned you into a character in a work of literature. Isn't it fucking amazing, hon? Together, it's like she's not getting the significance of what's going on here. It's not something that just comes along every day. Together, we're creating a great work of literature. Babe, think of it, the wonder of it, the incredible awesomeness of it. Did you ever think something like this would happen to you? Babe, you're a character now in Western literature, wandering through the landscapes of all its shattered worlds. Babe, you're so amazing, it's unbelievable. And I also typed, now you can no longer say, I don't matter. You do fucking matter because you mattered enough to a literary genius for him to write 2 entire poetry cycles about you. And also 3 more books and a book about her art and her journals and so forth and so on. You fucking do matter, hun. You can't say you don't anymore. Those days are over. You're as much a part of the Western literary tradition now as Helen or Beatrice or Heloise or Isolde or Juliet were. You belong in their company now, babe. Your life has ceased not mattering. That's all over with. You're part of something bigger than you ever knew you would be, hun. Then later that night, she typed, I love you a lot, John. That's a rare statement from her, by the way. I love you a lot, John. I still do, even after everything you put me through. What's wrong with me? Why can't I let you go? Half the time I feel like it was a mistake ever talking to you, but also it feels like it was unavoidable, like something beyond explanation brought us together. I don't know what to call it or what to make of it. Please, John, don't make me feel like it's a mistake. I have enough problems going on in my life. I need you to raise me up and make me feel good about myself. Did I not just fucking do that? With all those poems? What is this girl missing? Not bring me down. That's all I ever wanted to do for you, and you know it. I miss you. I wanted you in my life so bad. It was rare to get such an affectionate response from her, as she was a bit on the spectrum, and her emotions were awkward for her to communicate. In St. Petersburg, whenever we went out and about, she would never make eye contact with the cashier, say please and thank you, or open doors for anyone. It was as though she proceeded through the world like a phantom. 5. Meanwhile, back to fixation. She was, however, still having financial problems, and I had already worn out the video that she had sent to me. I wanted another one. And this time, I proposed that we both post it together on several porn sites with links to her webcam page in the hopes of drawing in more clients for her. She agreed. So, she made another video and sent it to me, and I paid her rent again. The video was very beautiful, no dildos this time, just her little pink vibrator with her coming again and again and again. It really turned me on. We posted it on several sites, but it didn't seem to help much with bringing her more traffic. Now, this is almost the only shot that I could quote from the video, but one that I want the reader to notice here, or the thing I want the reader to notice here, is the mischievous smile on Fixation's face. Her Fixation personality was totally and completely opposite to that of her default daylight personality. She only cammed at night. When she was doing her show, she was extremely extroverted, after half a bottle of wine, without which she was unable to perform, and very flirty with the potential customers. The persona was sly, seductive, and cunning, just like a classic streetwalker's and full of sexually adventurous energy. There really were indeed 6 of us, our default egos plus anima and animus, and our online avatars. In a classic Jungian diagram, it went something like this. My ego was in love with her shy, introverted, mystical ego, while her ego was in love with my bipolar daily self, given, as I'm sure the reader has perceived in the above Gmails, to manic extremes of effusive emotions. But she projected her animus onto my public avatar as John David Ebert, the guy who knows cool stuff, while I projected my anima onto her public avatar Fixation, although I was slower to warm to her avatar than she was to mine. That's all one hell of a tangle. Yep. Fixation there is i.e. Eros. John David Ebert on his channel, i.e. Logos. That's a tangle. 6 different selves there, at least 6. For the third internet battle. We don't seem to get tired of these fights. I don't remember why, but we got into another fight again. Our fights were almost always over sex, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out. It was almost as though she was jealous of my lust for Fixation, and I was jealous of her attraction toward my clean, well-behaved persona. But as she found out, I was not quite that simple, as our avatars are only 2-dimensional flattenings of our real selves, as I wrote about in Dead Celebrities Living Icons, and she was way, way more complicated than her lustful, seductress persona. This time, she created an entire Twitter page dedicated to publicly defaming me. It was filled with all sorts of quotes from our emails and Facebook messages from previous fights. All couples fight. That's how they learn from each other important spiritual lessons. And when they do, they say nasty things to each other that they don't necessarily mean. But in this case, because of the new social media invasion, there was a written record of the nasty things we had said back and forth to each other in our fights. She didn't tell anybody about the other 80% of the time when things were good, or post any of the loving messages that we had sent back and forth to each other for many months. It was completely unfair to me, because all my angry quotes directed at her were taken out of their original context, and in which she very conveniently left out all of her manipulative provocations. She knew very well how to push my buttons with her passive aggression, and she thoroughly enjoyed, for the first time in her life, having that kind of power over a man. Making me angry was a favorite pastime of hers. She had never had power over a man before, and now she did, and she was relishing it. She could now get her favorite public intellectual to do and say almost anything she wanted. In retaliation, I posted a video on YouTube telling the entire story of our relationship in a manner that was very accusatory. I told the whole story, but with the specific intent of making her look like the bad guy, just as she was doing with me on the Twitter page. Once again, she was mortified. "Take it down, John," she texted. "I'll take it down if you take down the Twitter page. That's public slander and defamation, Mary. It's illegal. I could take you to court for that." She took the Twitter page down, and I took my video down, and now we weren't talking again. But now for the first time, I was intent on actually finding and getting access to her webcam room. I had found her site, but was unable to access her actual room because she had blocked the state of Arizona, since she knew I was there, and I had never been able to actually watch her interact with prospective clients in her room. Her webcam room is where she sits in front of the camera and flirts with potential customers, which is free until somebody decides they want a private session with her, and the screen goes blank while she masturbates for them. But I figured out how to use an IP blocker so that I could now watch her live for the first time in her room talking with her men. At first she was upset. "Oh my God," she said, talking to the camera and at me directly through it. "This could not have turned out in a worse possible way," she went on. And I remember that's exactly how she said it. "I wanted to actually see you in action, interacting with your men," I typed on her Gmail, which was the only way we could directly communicate. I sent her the Gmails and watched as she read them come in on her phone live, and then she would talk directly back to me over the live feed. It was very, very strange. At first, she hurled a string of insults at me, telling her men with great exaggeration that her, quote, psycho ex-boyfriend was stalking her. But gradually, inevitably, we warmed up to one another again. Very quickly, we were making each other laugh over all the crazy shit we had done. We missed each other and we loved each other. And love is one powerful motherfucking force, let me tell you. It's like the fifth fundamental force. There's gravity and electromagnetism, then the strong and the weak nuclear forces, and then love, which is the fifth force in the center, and of which the other four are physical manifestations. It kept drawing us back again and again, and would continue to do so down to the present day, no matter how much we hurt each other. I still talk to her via mediums. Just spoke with her about a month ago. Pretty soon, we fell into a new routine, perhaps the most bizarre iteration of our relationship yet, although just wait, patient reader, it keeps getting weirder and weirder. I would jump onto her site every night when she would start, after I received her message saying, I'm on now, and I would talk to her using Gmail, which she read on her phone, and then talk back to me through the camera. Any customers browsing the room would have thought something very strange was going on. Who is this woman talking back to? This is how a typical interaction with us would go. This is a direct quote from one of our transcripts. Her, typing, I'm on cam. My stream looks slow, though. Can you tell me if it is? Me. Oh, wow, you look amazing, darling. Stream is perfect. Her, speaking, but not typing to me. I don't look that great tonight. Me. I'll be the judge of that. Her, speaking. I feel sick tonight. Me. You don't sound sick. Me. Babe, I can't believe how lucky I am that you're my girlfriend. I still can't believe that someone as beautiful as you is in love with me. I'm just blown away by that. Me. Stream's fucking up. Her. I'm logging off and back on. Me. Where's my doll? Me. There she is. Gorgeous. Stream's still fucking up, though. And so on. At some point I typed to her, there's something very sweet about this now, baby. There's kind of a weird fairy tale quality to our relationship. Don't you agree? Yes, John, I do. I fantasized about you so much that I actually made you come out of the internet and enter my life. We started to have a lot of fun with sex again. The time between customers was long, and she had been bored lying around on her bed looking seductive. So we spent the time between calls talking back and forth like we always did. We talked about philosophy. We talked about music. Once again, anything and everything. When she would get a customer and the screen would go blank, usually for about 20 minutes, I would then masturbate to one of her videos. I've got 2 of them now at this point, so that I knew we were masturbating at the same time, something she could not do in her public room as it was forbidden by the house rules. Then I had an idea. I asked if she would turn her phone on and call me whenever she got into one of her sessions. That way I could hear what was going on, and I could then masturbate together with her and her client, a weird kind of electronic 3-way. I could then listen to her having orgasms for her tricks. It really turned me on. At first, she was against it. No, John, she said, that's bad for our relationship. Very possibly she had a point here. But I convinced her that it would be harmless and that we should at least try it once. We then proceeded to have a lot of fun with those 3-ways night after night. The guys would have no idea that she was masturbating not only for them, but for her crazy boyfriend as well, who was masturbating over the phone right along with them. Welcome to hypermodernity. This is crazy shit. Then she broke the rules of the site and started masturbating for me with her vibrator while in her public room, but only with her panties on. This went on for a couple of weeks. We were having a blast. We had finally found a way to integrate me into her fixation show. This was in May of 2017. Gravity Girl was published on May 13th. And she received her copy within a day or 2. She was thrilled with it. I had put one of her spectacular black and white paintings on the cover, which I entitled Birth at the time, and she was fine with it, although I've since changed it to Deathbird Rising in the Motorcycle Girl trilogy. And she loved seeing it published. Then we crashed and burned. Yet again. One night, as we were talking over the phone after her show, she told me that her friend, a man who had been a friend of hers for about a year before she and I had met, had recently told her that he was in love with her. But she didn't love him. She never had, she never did, she never would. She had explained to me that she was not sexually attracted to this individual, who was an older man, about my age. When she first told me about him, as we were courting back in the fall of 2016, I spotted him as a threat right away. I knew what he was after, and it wasn't her love. She had told me that at one point she had considered having a, quote, relationship with him because, she explained, she had never actually had one with a man before, only fuck buddies. But I knew that was a code word for sex. And once I heard that, I realized that he had to be cut out of the picture right away. So I explained to her that if she wanted to be with me, she couldn't see this guy anymore. She had agreed, and for the time I was with her in Florida, they had no contact. Until that last night when everything fell apart. Earlier that evening, I had driven her to her brother's apartment so she could get some more weed. But her friend lived with her brother, and my instincts told me, as I sat in the car and waited, that she was in there talking with him. Later that night, I overheard her telling her mother that she had indeed been talking with him while at her brother's. I also knew that when we had resumed our on-again, off-again relationship when I got back to Phoenix, that she was hanging out with him. He was her, quote, best friend, if you want to call it that. But I knew that he only really wanted to sleep with her. She enjoyed making me jealous of him. Whenever during the early months of 2017 we would get into a fight, she would taunt me by telling me that her friend was over at her place, drinking wine, and that the two of them were laughing at me. She's in my life now, this clown boasted to me on Facebook. He was a vulture, this guy. The worst sort of cowardly, castrated man who waits around for the relationship of another man to go bad so that he can then move in for the kill as the proverbial shoulder to cry on. And that's exactly what this guy was, a vulture man. In the medieval love story of Tristan and Isolde, there is a vulture man who shows up in the form of a dwarf after Tristan has killed the dragon and cut off his head. As Tristan is lying in a pool of water, sick from the dragon's poison, the dwarf grabs the head and goes back to the court where he claims credit as the one who has slain the dragon and therefore now has the right to the hand of Isolde. That's who this guy was. Now here she was over the phone in June telling me this man had just proclaimed his love for her. She didn't love him, and I knew that. She was mostly just using him for company. But nonetheless, it was too much for me to bear. There was no way I was going to compete with him. I was tired of competing with her men, and there always seemed to be someone I had to compete with when it came to her. He was there with her in physical space, hanging out with her at her place every night. What night would it be when she got drunk and stoned enough while we were in one of our fights to finally spread her legs for him? And indeed, just as I predicted, that night came a year later. She finally did get drunk enough one night in February of 2018 to spread her legs for him, but it was an epic fail, she told me. He couldn't even get it up for her. And as I had also predicted, since I knew that he had just been biding his time, waiting around for the chance to sleep with her, that episode ended their so-called friendship. So on the phone, as she was telling me this, I told her she was a piece of shit for playing me off against him, and that I never wanted to speak to her again. She was deliberately playing him off against me to her advantage, intentionally making me jealous, and she was enjoying the power she had over me. I wasn't having any of it. I hung up. The last time I heard from her that year, 2017, was a month later in July, when she sent me a picture of herself with a long vertical slash cut down the middle of her arm. I can cut deeper if you want, she typed on her Facebook feed. Cut that shit out, Mary, I typed back. You need to get some help for that. Stop with the suicidal bullshit. She didn't reply. I stopped messaging her. It was more than I could take. I didn't have any contact with her again for 9 months. And the next iteration, over the summer of 2018, was the weirdest one yet. All right, so I'm working on the next chapter here on my mother's death and the transitional period here, that 9 months until the two of us connect again. But I'll stop there.